Welcome everybody to the 6 p.m. redevelopment agency meeting of May 14th, 2019. The roll call reflects all council members are present except for Vice Chair Chaburka, who's asked to be excused so that she can attend on the collective behalf of the neighborhood regarding planning proposal in the Jefferson. Asked Council Member Lopez in her absence to lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
Everyone, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Councilman Lopez.
Thank you.
Board Member Lopez. Please consider joining us for a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, first item on our business is reports from administration, fiscal year 2019-2020 proposed budget presentation. Yes, Mrs. Stout.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with the RDA board this evening to talk about the proposed redevelopment agency budget. I'm going to just hit a few of the highlights. We will have a work session on this to discuss in more detail. Here's just a quick comparison. The slide shows a quick comparison of revenue from fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 20. The redevelopment agency increment revenue, the tax increment revenue, is going up slightly. It's increased to $10,750,025. Other revenues have increased to $6,881,525. Other revenue includes lease income, interest income, and contributions from the city. This is a list of all of the increment revenue that the city is receiving. We have expired 3 increment areas. I'll show you those on the next slide. The increment areas that are still collecting, the RDA is still collecting on, are shown in this list. I have highlighted in bold Golden Links and BDO. Those increment areas will expire. This will be the last year they will be budgeted. Next year, those areas will expire, and the tax revenue will go to each of the taxing entities that will benefit from the increase in property values. The expiring districts for fiscal year 20 are Lester Park, Park Boulevard, and Wall Avenue. In fiscal year 19, the year-to-date increment received in the RDA is $452. The city will see approximately 20% of that revenue as an increase to general fund property tax income. One of the activities in the redevelopment agency is the rec center. It was built in the Junction, the Central Business District Mall area. We collect increment from 5 other areas at this time to help pay for the debt on that rec center. In fiscal year 20, we're estimating it will be just over $1.9 million in increment we'll collect to help pay the debt on that.
Do you know when that debt is going to expire?
It will be paid off in 2027. Okay. The city will contribute just over $3.4 million to the redevelopment agency if the proposed budget is adopted. Here is a list of the areas and the amounts, including the housing fund and the Quality Neighborhood Housing Program. of $1 million, and then also the RDA Housing Fund of $290,000. And we'll review these in more detail in our work session. Another activity that the redevelopment agency has is each of the areas has agreed upon amount that they pay into the housing program. We estimate that transfer will be $346,900 in fiscal year 20. And then the contribution to the general fund will be $70,400 in fiscal year 20 if this budget is adopted. And finally, we have 3 remaining bonds left in the redevelopment agency. This is an exciting thing for me. I'm thrilled to see that we've paid off so many bonds in the redevelopment agency. These are all in the CBD mall. We have the rec center, and then we have also the 2016 A and B bonds that need to be paid off. They will be done in 2027, by 2027, which is when that RDA area expires. And I am looking forward to additional discussion in work sessions with the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions for Lisa? Okay.
We look forward to the discussion in the work session as well.
Okay, if there's no questions for Lisa or administration, I'll entertain action.
Chair, I will go ahead and make a motion that we accept proposed resolution 2019-8, accept it for review and set the public hearing for June 11th, 2019.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Board Member Blair, seconded by Board Member White to accept for review and set the public hearing for the fiscal year 2019-2020 proposed budget. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate the presentation. Next item is Solomon Center lease modification. Item B. We have Mr. Christopoulos here.
Board members, council staff, mayor, and Mark. I'm here to summarize the second lease modification, the proposed lease that the agency has in front of the board. So the consideration is to authorize the executive director to execute a second lease modification agreement that amends the Solomon Center lease with Health and Fitness Holding, the current tenant, also known as Gold's Gym, with EOS Fitness, and another agreement with Total Fitness detailing the distribution of additional rents. The net result of these transactions will provide $104,599 in annual lease revenues to the agencies. As a preamble to this particular presentation, I wanted to make sure that the council was aware that there were certain objectives of the negotiating team, which ended up being one person because of my particular inavailability, and was basically negotiated by one of the best negotiators we could have had, which was Mel Smith, who is well versed in leases. Our objectives, as we discussed them, were to strengthen the lease, to make sure that it financially was more viable, that it also ended up being closer to a market rate, and that we could move it more steadily towards the market rate over the years. We wanted to stabilize the use in a highly competitive health and fitness industry, and we wanted to make sure that those conditions were known as we went into it, and that was our objectives, which we think that we met. The history, I think, was well laid out in 2004. The resolution is authorizing the executive director to negotiate the long-term lease with Health and Fitness was entered into. The rent payments were between $70,000 and $80,000 a month. It's a triple net lease, and all of the leases that we talked to our triple net, which means that the tenant picks up the responsibility for all expenses. In 2005, we ended up moving forward to a 20-year lease with a termination date, I'll go through that in just a second. So let me back up again. So in 2016, there was an amendment made by the executive director with Total Fitness and Fat Cats to, because there had never been a record of a sublease between Total Fitness and the other tenants. They were originally considered a single entity, which didn't really suit the existing relationship. So that the lease was amended in 2016. So the proposal as to the additional lease now is basically to create a new lease with a new tenant, which will include the bowling alley, the restaurants, the gift shop, the tunnel, the wave, not include the bowling alley, the restaurants, the gift shop, the tunnel, but predominantly just the gym area. So that particular area, let me move over to my next set of notes. So the second lease modification will be an agreement allowing certain subtenants to sublease parts of the center. That's the Wynn Corporation has been identified, and the terms will be until 2027. The sublease will basically move us from the existing lease of $6.04 a foot to $10 a foot for the duration of the lease till 2027, creating the additional increment of $104,526,000 worth of revenue. The lease agreement, as it is currently written, basically allows us to split the additional revenue with the original tenant. So that's how the additional revenue, there's actually $208,000 approximately that is created in that split with the primary tenant and the secondary tenant as it's increased. The good part of the lease is that getting to $10 a foot starts moving us to approaching a more normalized market rate lease. And in 2027, the subleases then move us to a rate of $12 a square foot. There is some discussion. When the negotiation was taken, there was a discussion that became a primary barrier to completing the lease. The tenant requested, actually probably more demanded, that they would need to be able to have at the end of the lease a tenant improvement allowance of $500,000. To give you an idea of what that does to the lease rate, that moves us from a $12.10 lease rate to $11.90 if we consider the value of that tenant improvement. That tenant improvement also acts as an incentive to create additional 2 5-year leases beyond the 2027 term. So as we went through the lease, we think we met our objectives and our to lease a very important part of the city's assets. We have 52,000 square feet that we think will be improved by having an enhanced tenant and having secondary guarantees by the existing tenant. And it will move us forward into the future and allow us also to keep the internal part of the building up to date in 2027. So I've kind of simplified the parts of the deal so that it doesn't, there's a lot of different escalators and things that are on there, but the primary issue is to try to get us to the point where we feel that the deal that we have will help the entire district, will create new revenues, help us basically pay off if we choose to do that, if the board chooses to do that, help us reduce the level of indebtedness that we have faster. So with that, I have any questions. I'll entertain any.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions from board members?
I have one, Tom. I'd like to go back. I know the Nielsen's have done a terrific job in developing that type of a business there. but the financial stability of EOS is considerable. Can you maybe review a little bit on that as a possibility there?
Yeah, without disclosing things that are specific to their financial and confidential, they are significantly a larger entity. They're a national entity in scope. They have a significant amount of capital, which is designed to pursue the current existing marketplace, which I think you're all familiar with, has consolidated into a number of different, has gone away from ma and pa type of facilities. For example, Cubics, which was on Harrison, closed down recently. A number of other small users have closed down because of the incursion of large national players like Vasa Fitness. So they are a large national player in this particular arena, and they're coming in to basically try to buy market share and participate. Gives us a much better presence as far as what the long-term benefits are to our space. I don't know exactly how they plan on changing that. It's up to them. I know they'll bring in newer equipment, and even though the facility's 10 years old, that would be nice. It's only 10 years old. Seems like it was yesterday, but it's still only 10 years old. So with that, the new equipment and the new approach, they'll have a lot different, they'll have more hours of opening, which we think is a good thing. And they'll have other offerings. They'll have more training available than has been there. And then some other things that they'll talk about as they move forward.
But they're financially stable then.
As far as we can tell from what their understanding is, one of the things that we don't know is how many units they're going to buy and how much of their capital will be absorbed in buying additional units. They're buying 7 or 8 units in this market in order to make a market presence. How far that will go, but as we look at them right now, it's an enhanced lease because we still have the underlying tenant guarantees going forward. So.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Just maybe an ancillary question is what do the CAM charges, how do they affect this lease, or do they affect it at all, or they're
The
just
CAM charges are still part of the lease and are still paid according to the terms. We only have the church, Mark, and you might be able to remind me because I don't remember. We only have the church and ourselves and Boyer that are paying into the CAM charges.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for board members?
Just to make sure, if they don't re-sign at the end of 2027, if they don't re-sign a new lease, then the $500,000 is not paid.
Yeah, it doesn't go forward. We will basically have the space and we can go forward and release it. So we're kind of in the space will be paid off. We'll have it free and clear. If that were the eventual, if that became a choice, we'd actually be in very good shape at that particular time. So.
Great. Board member White, did you have a question?
No, he
Okay.
just asked.
Okay.
Great question.
So just a bit ago, I have to excuse the last minute nature here, but right before we came into this meeting, we got a 6-page letter from a constituent with questions or concerns. I think we asked our staff to dig into the details of it, but there were some questions I think would help the council if you could answer. Can you summarize the memo?
Yes, I'd be happy to. This is a letter from Travis Pate that he submitted. He's done some research on EOS Fitness and determined that they are, as you mentioned in the work session, very well financed and a strong company. They have locations in Phoenix and Las Vegas and Southern California and Florida. And he did some research and based on what his research, he felt like the $500,000 was too much money for this company and to commit to now. I spoke with him yesterday, and he was as much concerned about the timing of committing this money as the amount. So he feels like it's that we'd be subsidizing EOS.
So you want me to just address that one while you're there? The $500,000, whether the size of the corporation or whatever else is there, leases of this age are often refreshed because the lessee will not take a building in the condition without its ability. in our research and the experience of both Mel and I in the lease agreements, $500,000 is a very small percentage of the total lease dollars, and it acts more as an incentive to have them take the subsequent than it does as a cost. So it depends on how you want to look at it. But in our particular view, and Mel really negotiated, there was a lot of numbers that were on the table. We tried to go down to zero, and basically that would have killed the deal. And so we made the decision that the value of the deal to the city, the $500,000, was a negligible cost over time, and really gave us a much stronger situation. And that trade-off, it was more important than the other considerations that might have been made. So again, it's really it's 16 cents a foot in reduction if you look at it over the period of the lease that's coming up, which is relatively nothing.
So, and how big is the building?
56. The leasable space is roughly 56,000 and change. So that's just the leasable space. The building's bigger than that. So some of it will stay under the bowling alley, and the rest of it will stay as part of the original lease.
And I just want to give context to my colleagues. So I just did some tenant improvements on a building that I own, and it was it's a 5,000 square foot building, and we paid about $65,000. So it's not unusual to pay that amount of money, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. So.
My understanding is that the 500,000 would not come into play until at the end of 27 or 27
it's only
years
if they
away.
re-up and take another 10 years, which is,
Right.
if you look at the economic value of the increased lease, it's a very small portion of the additional revenue. And in any negotiation that you get into, you can second guess that position and say, well, it's too much, or based on the size of the company, it's too much. In order to basically make this transaction happen, it was a deal killer, and we said, okay, it's not worth losing the deal for this particular incentive.
There was one other point that he made, and that was that there doesn't seem to be any control on how they spend the $500,000.
And I think that's actually a really good observation, but consider this. Their job is to basically assure that they get future members. That money will go primarily to assure that they get future members, and it will go to improve the physical aspects of that building. We kind of said, okay, we're in the same business then. Our interests are aligned. You know, they're not really going to spend it someplace that isn't going to enhance their membership. So we just kind of drew the conclusion that it was something that we don't think is really going to be a big issue. It was, all of these things were considered in the negotiation, and all Mel could do is call me in my hospital bed and explain it to me, and I just went, seems logical. I think you've thought through everything, so.
We're glad you're not in the hospital anymore.
Yeah.
So am I.
Any more questions from the board? Okay, appreciate you answering those questions, Tom.
Hey, Tom, real quick, I'm sorry before you leave. How old is that building right now?
2000, we finished it and dedicated it in 2007. I don't remember the exact month. So, you know, we're 12 years in. It seems like yesterday. So it was the first project I worked on when I came to work in the city. So
Seems like yesterday to me, too.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Okay. If there's no more questions, we'll entertain action.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a proposed resolution 2019-19.
That's 19 or 9?
9.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Stevens, second by Board Member Heyer to adopt proposed resolution 2019-9. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Blair?
Aye.
Board Member Heyer?
Aye.
Board Member Lopez?
Aye.
Board Member Stevens?
Aye.
Board Member White?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye, that passes. Just a comment, Tom, there you went. appreciate your presentation. Also appreciate it's important that we've got professionals that know how to negotiate these kinds of agreements, and we're lucky to have you and Mel for that kind of an expertise. So if not for that, it would be a lot harder to judge a negotiation outcome. So. Yep, if you'll pass that along to Mel, we'd appreciate it.
Chair,
Okay.
if I could just make one
Yeah.
comment too, and I appreciate Travis stepping up too, and Mr. Pate doing what he did, and it makes us even better and ask questions and do the things that we're supposed to do too. So I appreciate him doing that for us too.
And that's what we want our citizens to do, is to go out and maybe do some research and bring it forward, and so we can consider those aspects. And so I second what Marcia has indicated there.
Okay, thanks you guys. Next item on our agenda is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the board regarding any concerns or ideas on any topic. Please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Chris Fillion. I live at 973 Sullivan Road in Ogden, 84403. Hi, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you very much for hearing my comments. I just wanted to talk real quickly about the scooters that we've been seeing around the city for the past month now. I know that they were introduced to the city about a month ago, and they were designed to be used for a pilot period for 3 months, just to kind of gather information and see how it was going before any real action was taken in the city. I do have some concerns about some of the things I've seen with the scooters in the city, and I would like the city council to consider addressing them sooner rather than later. I really think that we need better education and infrastructure for those scooters to be operated safely inside the city. And I know that there are a lot of cities that are experiencing the same kind of growing pains, and I would really encourage the city to look at ways that we can make sure that our citizens are educated and that we can come up with easy infrastructure solutions so that we can keep the scooter traffic separate from pedestrian traffic and separate from automobile traffic. I know that we've had several injuries, including there was a news report on a scooter operator who was injured in a crosswalk on Saturday night. You know, we had a lot of people here for the Spike 150 celebrations. We were in the spotlight of a lot of news cameras, and there was a news report about someone who was injured in a crosswalk in what sounds like it was a hit and run accident, although not all the results have come out yet. So I know that there was a new bill that went into effect today, SB 139 in the state of Utah, that says now that scooters should be treated like bicycles on sidewalks and in crosswalks. And I know the city itself doesn't have any regulation in place right now, but I know that SB 139 specifically states that the operator of a scooter inside a crosswalk needs to use prudence, cannot behave in a negligent manner, and needs to make sure that they're using safe speeds. And I think it's really important that if we don't have any other regulation in place right now, I think it's really important that we look at enforcement of at least the information that's inside SB 139. And I encourage you guys to be looking closely at what's happening, making sure that our pedestrians are safe, making sure that our motorists are safe, and making sure that our citizens are safe riding those scooters. I think they're a really great solution, and I think that a lot of cities have gone through the growing pains and found ways that they can have those scooters coexist with the other people who are using public rights of way. And I think the city needs to take the lead in making sure that they can be operated safely in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fillion. Nice to meet you too and have you here tonight. Mm-hmm. Any others? Come on up. Again, if you'll just state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
My name is Al Jones. I'm a resident of here in Ogden. I'm up in just north of Harrison on 25th Street. And I do want to sort of piggyback on Mr. Fillion's comments about the scooters. I've had some unfortunate experiences myself on the sidewalks with some of the clearly some under 18 years of age, in some cases significantly of them driving extremely fast on the sidewalks, which is a little upsetting. I think it's a little bit startling to many people who are not used to vehicles traveling on sidewalks that quickly. And I know there's been some issues of them riding too close to the buildings and people stepping out of a building who they do not expect someone to be zipping by that fast. I myself witnessed a scooter collide with a car who didn't see them over there here on Lincoln. And again, I am in general support of these scooters. I think that they can be an attribute to the community. But we have to figure, I think it behooves us to figure out a way to police them in a prudent manner and figure out how to keep everyone safe, scooter operators, pedestrians, cars, bicyclists, that sort of thing. And then on one of the things of which I'm, a new topic of which is one of my pet peeves is, of course, litter. I spend a significant amount of time out picking up litter, and I don't have a solution to what can be done about it, but the litter problem is extreme. In cases, I have my little grabber tool where I walk out and pick up litter between the bus stop here and the front door here. I picked up an entire shopping bag full of litter, over 40 cigarette butts. And I don't know what the solution is to this problem, but it's bad. And then on my final topic is that we had a great celebration here last week for the meeting of the rails. And I think aspects of that went very well. But I believe that some of the communication to the public at large was a little bit lacking, and to some of the business owners. And I personally think we might have done a better job. Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
And thanks for picking up all that litter.
I think you know the routine.
Hello, Angel Castillo. I would like to also talk about the scooters, and just to begin with, I think scooters are a wonderful idea for that last mile, and in theory, I think they're a fantastic tool to help get more people out of cars and using public transportation. As was pointed out, I believe the solution is perhaps to approach Lyme with education. One of the problems that we're having is the pedestrian speed on the sidewalk, which is 3 to 4 miles an hour, and scooters go all up to 20 miles an hour. And I've seen scooters easily doing 15 miles an hour on the sidewalk, which is an okay thing if someone's being an adult and responsible and slowing down for pedestrians. But we're seeing a whole lot of 16-year-olds on the scooters. And on one hand, it's a thing of joy. I love seeing youth really enjoying themselves and smiling, but we've got some issues, especially on 25th Street, where there's a higher pedestrian concentration. So I think the solution would be to approach Lyme with a pedestrian and scooter rider education session, which they would pick up if a citizen attends the session, the training session. That could be 20 miles an hour, where it goes through, or 20 minutes for a session where it goes through what you can and what you can't do on a scooter, what's legal, what's not illegal, and then Lyme goes ahead and gives you a free hour on the scooter. I think it would be an incentive for people to take the class because they get some free time. And it really comes down to education being the problem. There are not enough people who are aware of where you can ride them, how to ride them. And even though I know that there was an article in the Standard and we've put out videos of what you're supposed to do, as we all know, it's a continued education type of thing. There needs to be more outreach to reach those people, because I think that they're a great thing and I think they should stay, but we need to figure out how to protect pedestrians, how to protect the scooter riders. And of course, my long-term goal would be, at least in the downtown area, protected bike lanes, which would solve the problem. We would be able to put bikes there, scooters would be there, and pedestrians could remain on the sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board? Okay. Seeing no others, comments from the executive director.
Yeah, a couple things. I want to assure everybody that spoke on the scooters that law enforcement's keeping a really close eye on that. Our police chief tracks every mile they've been ridden, what's happening, and they're working on policy to come in and address some of that. Some of it is an education process with Lime and these other scooters. And in a lot of big cities, they had box trucks that showed up and dropped 500 scooters out without an operating agreement or anything else. We've come a lot further than that, but that's why we put the temporary piece in there, so that if there were issues we weren't able to address, that we could work on a different agreement. So we're paying a lot of attention to it, and we appreciate your patience as we work through that. Before he goes, I want to thank the Nielsen family for everything you guys have done down at the junction. You were one of the first in, one of our major tenants down there and operators. We appreciate everything you brought to the community when there was not a lot going on down there. So I know that this agreement and the competitive environment that you're operating in is a lot different than when you started, but we do recognize what contributions you and your family made to that project. You were one of the pioneers down there, and we do appreciate and respect you for that. Thank you very much for being here. And finally, with one of those that were heavy participants in this, it's been mentioned we had a lot happen over the past week with Spike 150. We had over 1,000 volunteers that contributed over 4,000 volunteer hours to that effort. A huge thank you goes out to all of our departments. Certainly, I'm surprised one of them's over there still vertical and able to take nutrition after everything that they did. Public safety had a huge lift there. I absolutely want to thank Visit Ogden and the Ogden Downtown Alliance for all of the effort they did. If you talk to them, it was more than a full-time job for the past 7 or 8 months without a lot of information to go on. So a huge thank you to all of them while you're here, and you need to know how much we appreciate that. UP said across the board that they do these events in a lot of different communities, and they've not worked with a better events production and execution crew than they saw here. They said we didn't give a lot of information. We didn't have a lot to give out. They just kind of grabbed it, built it, did something amazing with that, and so we really thank you for that. And an gee whiz kind of fact, Sydney Furton from Visit Ogden's been tracking the media that came out of that. And so far she's up to over 4,000 articles, which had close to 1.5 billion with a B impressions internationally. So a lot of people were watching what happened. Huge props to everybody that pulled it off without a hitch. We had great comments and feedback. It was interesting to see and read the license plates of where everybody came from and hear stories from international people that came in just for that event. So you all did us proud. We thank you for your efforts, and we thank all those volunteers. As has been mentioned, Ogden's been consistently rated as one of the most charitable communities in the United States when it comes to volunteer hours given and charitable donations given, and that was a highlight of the amazing things I think our community can do when they come together. But again, thank you to those that took the lead on that and had the lion's share of the load, so we appreciate all those efforts.
Comments from board members? Thank you, Mayor.
I'd like to piggyback what the mayor said, is that we showcased Ogden, and Christy, you did a great job with your work, with your staff that you had there, and everyone. When I was watching it, I caught the last section of the Union Pacific movie, and right at the last they say, well, they've let the nation know that the trains have arrived in Ogden and are moving forward. So, even in the movies, we were recognized as a destination, and there were millions or many individuals lining the tracks to see the steam locomotives come down Weber Canyon there in Echo, and it was just a wonderful experience that we had, and I want to thank everyone who had the opportunity of sharing this with other individuals. the resolution that we did today is a win-win situation. The Nelsons have contributed a great deal to the success of the junction, but also now we continue to have a viable tenant there that will continue to the growth and the opportunities that we have in the junction. The new company coming in wins, the citizens of Ogden wins, and the city of Ogden wins. So it's a win-win situation. I'm appreciative of the citizens who have brought up the opportunities that we have and the things that we need to look at with the scooters. I've witnessed several of the situations that you've mentioned, and I would encourage not only our administration but our staff to maybe look into what needs to be considered during this period of time when they are just trying the scooters out, so that we can be forward-looking and be ready to go if it is a possibility of having them here in Ogden. So we need to look forward in that capacity there to see what resolutions and what ordinances need to be considered to look at this.
Thank you. Comments from any other board members? Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by board member Heyer, second by board member Lopez to adjourn. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This is adjourned. We will reconvene as soon as the recorder's available, ready for the Municipal Building Authority meeting. Welcome everybody to the Municipal Building Authority meeting of May 14th, 2019. Let the roll call reflect that all trustees are present except for trustee Chaburka, who has asked to be excused to attend a community event. First item on our agenda is reports from administration, fiscal year 2019 to 2020 proposed budget presentation.
Justin Sorensen will be making that presentation, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark.
Council Chair and trustees, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight to present to you the proposed budget for the Municipal Building Authority for fiscal year 2019-2020. The MBA budget is proposed to decrease less than 0.5%. That decrease from fiscal year 19 to 2020 is it's only $1,625, just a small decrease from last year's annual budget, which brings the total budget to $537,425. This budget is based on the debt service obligations in the MBA. There's approximately $2,271,000 worth of bonded debt outstanding, or that will be outstanding at the end of June 30th of this year. The debt is made up of two different bonds. The first is for the 2006 Public Works Facility Bond. That one was issued in May of 2006, and the revenue collected in the MBA for this bond is made up from the general fund and the water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and refuse funds that help pay for this bond. It will be paid off in 2021, and the remaining balance as of June 30th will be $545,000. The other bond in the MBA is the 2007 Raptors Lindquist Stadium bond. This one, the revenue is funded from the general fund to pay for this debt, and it will be paid off in 2028. And as you can see, the balance at the end of this fiscal year of June 30th will be $1,726,000. We'll be meeting with you in an upcoming work session to discuss this budget in more detail. I appreciate your time and having me.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions for Justin before he sits down? Thank you. Okay, if there's no questions, I'll entertain action.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we accept for review the resolution 2019-1, set the public hearing for June 11th.
Second.
We have a motion by Trustee Heyer, second by Trustee Blair to accept for review and set the public hearing for the fiscal year 2019-2020 proposed budget for the Municipal Building Authority. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thanks, Justin, for your presentation. Next item on our agenda is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the board regarding concerns or ideas on any topic. Okay, seeing no movement, we'll move to comments from our president.
Careful. Nothing to add at this time.
Thank you. Trustees.
Why does he get to be our president? We get to be trustees.
No comment. All right. If there's no comments from trustees, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Heyer, second by Trustee Blair to adjourn. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.